Good afternoon. I am speaking to my speech students at Eastfield College for the summer session. This is summer session 1, and I believe I have a couple of classes, and so we're going to be combining these in this video. Let me welcome you to class. My name is Randy Mayeux. Randy Mayeux. You can call me Randy. This is a recorded video. And most of the time you see my face, it will be a recorded video. There will be a couple of times, maybe once a week, where we will have a live WebEx meeting, and I will let you know about that. And it will be sometime between 5:30 and 7 in the evening on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. I have not finalized my schedule on when we will do that. I'm making this short video to welcome you to class and to say a few things just to kind of get you started. So you'll know there's going to be a reading assignment that I want you to complete very quickly, a very short video assignment where you're going to watch a video where a man named Carmine Gallo pauses Steve Jobs, the former CEO of Apple, who is now deceased, and he's going to let Steve Jobs speak, and then he'll pause and he'll say, "Did you notice this? And did you notice that?" So that will be the beginning. And then there will also be an assignment for this weekend, ready to turn in by Monday, where you will watch a TED Talk, a specific TED Talk by a woman named Celeste Headley, a very good TED Talk, and you're going to be given a form to fill out a listening assignment, and that will be your first graded assignment. You will receive a grade on that. The grade will be a C, and the C does not mean C as in A or B or C, but the C will mean completed. So I'm just kind of acclimating you to what is going to happen. And you're going to be working also this weekend by Monday on choosing something for your first major assignment that will be graded with number grades. 100 would be a perfect. I don't give many 100s. So I'm getting you ready for that. Let me do some introductory comments to you as we begin. First of all, I want to tell you, hold on, sorry about that. After I say welcome, I want you to write this down, and I will say some things that I say, I want you to write this down, and I will say this will be on your first or second test. And when I say that, I promise you, it will be on the test. And so when you hear those magic words, this will be on the test, that is an accurate statement. Write this down. This will be on the first test. What is a conversation? What is a conversation? Now, you can look up the definition of a conversation in a lot of places, but I want you to write down my definition of a conversation. Here's a conversation. The first person speaks while the second person listens. And then the second person speaks while the first person listens. This is called turn taking. The first person speaks while the second person listens. The second person speaks while the first person listens. This is called turn taking. That is a formula for practically every kind of communication. Communication where you're reading and the author is communicating to you. Communication when you're having what appears to be what we normally label a conversation with two people. Frequently, when you look at two people conversing, what is actually happening is this. The first person is speaking while the second person may be distracted, may be looking at a device, may be thinking about what they're going to say, but they are not listening. The only time you have an actual conversation is when the first person speaks and the second person is actually listening. And then when the second person speaks, in response to what the first person said, as though it goes together into an interaction with meaning, then the first person listens as attentively as this other person did when they were speaking. One person speaks, one person listens. Another person speaks, another person listens. That is a conversation. And be sure and write down on the test the whole definition. The first person speaks, the second person listens. The second person speaks, the first person listens. This is called turn taking, taking turns. So if we had a live class, and this is my first ever semester for online only classes. In fact, at the end of spring, once we closed down the campus because of the global pandemic, that was the first time that I shifted to online teaching. So this is a first for me, and it may be a first for some of you. And so normally in class, we talk about that a little bit. And we laugh a little bit about how, and this is important to understand, men seem to be worse than women at putting their devices down and actually listening. There's research that says that men do not listen as well as women, and women listen a great deal better than men. So men have to work at it, whereas women, it might come a little more naturally. So when I say that that's kind of the first rule, when you are reading an author, you are paying attention to the words of the author. When you are watching a video, you are paying attention to the message of the person speaking on the video. When you are having an interaction, you are listening while that other person is talking to you. You are attentive and you are responsive. So I want to start with that, and I always start with that in my live classes. That will be the only real part of this brief welcome lecture and video that I expect you to write down and learn for a test. Now, I want to say something else that I'm not going to test you over, but I think you ought to learn it carefully. I don't remember when I first learned the phrase. It's a very old phrase, but there is a wonderful book by an author named Daniel Pink, and the book is called Drive, D-R-I-V-E, Drive, and it is a book about intrinsic motivation. It's a book about how the two major kinds of motivation are extrinsic and intrinsic. Extrinsic motivation, he says, is carrots and sticks. If you have a horse that you want to do something, you offer the horse a carrot. They literally used to have these gizmos that would kind of have a carrot jiggling in front of a horse as it moves, and it would move to try to get the carrot and keep moving. So that was the promise of something good. And it's like when you give a dog a treat after doing a trick, it is a carrot. It is a reward, right in your mind, or write this down on paper, rewards and punishments. Carrot is a reward. The punishment is a stick. You beat the horse with a stick. You threaten to fire somebody. You threaten in a class to give a student an F because he or she did not do the work. And so Daniel Pink says there are only two major kinds of motivations, extrinsic and intrinsic. Intrinsic motivation means that you are motivated from within yourself to do the work that needs to be done. My goodness, is online learning a style of learning that requires intrinsic motivation? I'm not watching you. I can't tell if you cheat. I can't tell if you are having the video run while you're actually playing a video game with another device at the same time. It is up to you to learn. In a traditional classroom, I teach, you learn. In this kind of classroom where there is no classroom, I do still teach, but you have to be the primary motivator of yourself. You have to motivate yourself. In fact, I would argue that all motivation is self-motivation when you have the option to say no. And you do have the option to say no. You can get by with a bare minimum. You can barely do what's needed. You can choose not to learn. But I want you to know that you have an opportunity to learn based on how well you diligently apply yourself with intrinsic motivation to learn. So I hope that you will work on that. And you might want to read a review of Drive by Daniel Pink, and you might even want to watch, and this is not an assignment, but you might want to Google Daniel Pink TED Talk. It's about a 15 or 16-minute TED Talk, and he talks about what intrinsic motivation is. I will mention through the course of this summer session books to read, videos to watch that I will not assign you, but some of you are diligent students and you want to learn even more. So you might want to keep a running note of these ideas, and Drive by Daniel Pink is a good book to someday read, and the video of his TED Talk is absolutely worth watching. Okay. I'm going to be sending you an email, so I'm talking on this video and you'll be getting the link to this video to watch. I'll have it on YouTube. I'm going to give you an assignment to read an article that I wrote on my blog called 2 Ways to Guarantee a Failed Presentation, and you will learn that all successful speeches have these 2 things in common, and they are in common with every successful speech. The good speaker, the effective speaker, the effective speech. The speaker has something to say and then says it very well. Next week, I'll be doing a lecture. I call it Overview and Initial Concepts. And after that lecture, I'll go to a lecture on how to prepare a speech and how to deliver a speech. And I will elaborate more fully on this concept of have something to say it very well. If you are a good natural speaker, but you don't have any good content, you failed as a speaker. If you have great content, but you are boring, you don't pronounce your words well, you don't look the audience in the eye, you do not connect with your audience, even though the material is great, you have failed as a speaker. So have something to say it very well. You'll be reading an article about that. And then you're going to read another article that has embedded in it about a 7-minute video where, and I already mentioned it, Carmine Gallo shows you some things that Steve Jobs does effectively. And so I want you to pay attention to that. Your listening assignment will be with Celeste Headley, and all of this will be in the email you've received and items on eCampus for that. And then you will have, as the summer session unfolds, you're going to be doing 2 main speeches, an informative speech and a persuasive speech. And you will need to record these because we can't have a class in person, and you'll need to upload your recording to YouTube and send me the link so I can grade it. And both of those 2 speeches will require an outline that you send me. I'll teach you about the process of outlining, and it will require research with a minimum, you can have more than this, but a minimum of 4 sources. So you find articles, books, things to read from legitimate experts. I'll be talking about how to do research, and you will need 4 sources in those speeches. You're also going to be given 2 listening assignments, one of them right away, this Celeste Headley TED Talk, and then there'll be a final speech that does not require outside research. It's kind of a fun assignment, but it's a full grade. There'll be 2 tests. Let me just pause about the tests. They are not multiple choice. You will be writing answers, and since I can't do it any other way, it will be open note. So it's really not as good a way to test you as it would be in a regular semester. But I want you to at least read these questions and write the answers at least once, and you'll be submitting these. By the way, you are allowed to handwrite most anything you send me, and just take a picture of it and upload it to me. And there'll be ways to do that on eCampus. By the way, I'm learning eCampus as we go, so help me out a little bit. But also, except for those, I'm sorry, let me restart that. There will only be 2 assignments where I require you to type, and that will be the 2 speech outlines, your informative speech and your persuasive speech. So I do want you to be prepared for that. If you do not have a computer with a keyboard or a way to type that, then send me a message and we'll work on that. I'm not going to penalize you for what you don't have. Okay, will there also be a group project? I've got to learn how to do this with you. That will be another assignment where the grade will be a C for completed. So you will not get a number grade on that. And I'm going to give you some options for extra credit. Let me go ahead in this short introductory welcome video from me to talk about what's happening in our country right now, not the global pandemic. We could talk about that also, but about the terrible death by the Minneapolis police officer of Mr. Lloyd, and the racist the discussions of racism in our country that are very real. Maybe this is a good place to tell you a little bit about me. I took my training in theology and then rhetoric communication. I have a master's degree from Pepperdine University, and I did all of my classwork for a PhD in communication, rhetoric, and public address from the University of Southern California. Did not finish the dissertation, so I do not have a PhD, but I did all the classes. I really focused on the rhetoric of the civil rights movement. So Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and other speakers. For the last few years, my wife and I have taken our vacations to critical civil rights spots. We went to Atlanta and Birmingham and Selma and Montgomery and Little Rock and Memphis. All of those are places where Martin Luther King lived or worked or gave great speeches. Birmingham, he was arrested in leading a protest. And I am a legitimate conversant person on the civil rights movement of especially 1955 through 1968. And I am distressed at the news today. And so I want to give you an extra credit assignment that I think you ought to go ahead and try to do this right away and be thinking about the current unrest, even though it's an assignment that is back from 1963. Again, all of this will be in the email and instructions to you. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1963 led a protest march in Birmingham, Alabama. My wife and I were in the city. We've seen the sculpture of dogs attacking a protest marcher. It's in the Town Square Park in Birmingham, that sculpture. There are other sculptures. There's a museum that says this is the jail door, the jail cell door that was on Martin Luther King Jr.'s jail cell. I'm not sure if it was, but it's certainly a possibility. He was definitely in jail in Birmingham. And while in jail, he responded to a page-and-a-half letter written by preachers and pastors, clergymen, basically saying, you shouldn't have come to Birmingham and led these protests. You should not have done this. And so he responded with a very famous document that he wrote in jail called the Letter from Birmingham Jail. It is a masterpiece. I've read most of his speeches. I've read biographies about him. There's a Pulitzer Prize winning book called Parting the Waters by Taylor Branch that I've read. But I think maybe the letter from Birmingham jail is the best thing he ever wrote. It is brilliant. It's long. It'll take you a while to read it. I would like to encourage you to read it this weekend and think about the unrest we are facing right now. You'll read him talk about police brutality in there and in the I Have a Dream speech. It's a tough issue, and you will do yourself a favor to educate yourself on what Dr. King had to say about this racial divide and the unjust elements of our society. So that will be extra credit. I'll give you 10 points of extra credit if you read that and write at least a one-page response. If you write, not response, but summary. I want you to summarize his letter. What did he say in his letter? And then at the end, if you want to write a personal response, do that. If you write an exceptional one, I'll up the number of extra credit points I give you. But if you give me a page, you'll get 10 points of extra credit. Well, that's my introduction to you. You're going to be getting some things to read in your emails and assignments. I hope you've watched this first. I'm going to record some lengthier lectures, and you're going to be given outlines to follow along. My goal is to help you learn to be a very good communicator. Now, the sad news is this is a summer session. It moves fast. So you've got to be ready to do assignments very quickly. So be prepared for that. Again, my name is Randy Mayeux, and I will see you again on video fairly soon, and we'll have a live session once or twice a week beginning next week. Thanks for watching.